Here are solutions to homework set number 6 for ECE 376. This problem looks at analog inputs and the chi-square test. Now the first problem is I want to create something with an analog input, this knob right here, and a neopixel. And what I did is I came up with a mood light. So first off, for connecting the neopixel to your board, I just soldered a bunch of leads to it, and then using male-female wires, connect that to your board. If I can get the direction correct. So it goes this way. Then, as I turn the pot, I'm going to vary the brightness going through the color wheel. So all the way to the left is green. This is red, green, blue. As I turn it, I start getting more and more red. This gives you orange, yellow. Oh, there's red. 1/3 of the way through is red. I then start mixing red and blue. Gives you magenta, blue, and start mixing blue and green, cyan, back to green. So go through the color wheel. Okay, how do I do that? Well, first you come up with the requirements. The requirements I want are the inputs is the analog input, output is the LCD display, and the neopixel, and the relationship, as I've varied the voltage, going between 0 and 100% of full scale, I want to go through the color wheel. So here's a couple points I'm going to pick out. All right, next the C code. The main routine is actually fairly simple. I just read the analog input, convert to a number 750. I'm just going to count. So this is 0, this is 750. I chose 750 just because this is 250, 500. I just count 0 to 250 for red in this region, and then blue goes 0 to 250, then green goes 0 to 250. As I do that. Let's see. Then I split up into regions. In the first region, I go right here. There's the red-green. The second region is between 250 and 500. And the third region. Once I calculate the red, green, blue brightness, I'll display that on the LCD, what you see up here. I'll then display everything on the neopixel. Now, when you use neopixels, this is kind of the style of coding you have to use. When I get to drive the neopixel, don't do anything else. That's all I'm going to do, just drive the neopixel 8 times for my 8 neopixels. And when I'm done, here's what it looks like. There's the color on the screen, red, green, blue, and the neopixel color. For validation, just kind of took a couple points at 0% green, then it goes 1/3 of the way through red, 2/3 of the way through blue, and proportional in the middle. So that was the first problem. The second problem looks at, can I tell whether this program generates a fair die or not? Well, to do that, I first need to collect data. To do that, I'll take this program, compile it, download it, and when I'm done, every time I press RB0, press release, I get a die roll. In addition, every time I do that, going back to the programmer, I get the data over here. To collect data, I'm first going to clear the data, hit the button a bunch of times. These are the die rolls, copy to clipboard. I can then paste that data into MATLAB and count how many 1s, how many 2s, how many 3s, and so on. So I did that, rolled the dice 176 times. Here's my answer. To determine if that's a fair die or not, I'll do a chi-square test. With 176 die rolls, this is how many times I should roll a 1, 2, 3, and so on. Here's how many times I did roll it. The chi-square scores take the difference squared divided by 29.33, difference squared divided by 29.33, repeat, add them all up, I get a chi-squared score of 3.05. If we go to StatTrak and pull up a chi-squared test, I can say I've got 5 degrees of freedom, meaning 6 degrees of freedom. My chi-squared score, I forgot, was 3.05. 3.05. Calculate. Probability is 30%. So with this data, there is a 30% chance the die is not fair. Basically 30% chance of rejecting the null hypothesis that this is a uniform die. So from this data, I have no reason to conclude it is not a fair die. Problem 5. Suppose I add this code. 1/7 of the time, I'm always going to roll a 6. Is that a fair die? Well, the procedure is the same as before. I rolled the dice a bunch of times. I rolled it 149 times. Got these results. Calculate the chi-squared score. With the 149 rolls, here's how many times I should roll a 1, 2, 3, and so on. Take the difference squared, divide by 24, difference squared, divide by 24, add them all up, I get 14.29. Going to StatTrak, convert that to a probability, that's a probability of 98%. So with this data, I'm 98% certain that this is not a fair die. That's a chi-squared test, test of a distribution. Next problem. In the next problem, I want to find out, am I psychic? So what I'm going to do is go over here. I'm going to guess what number is going to come up. I think the next number is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. It's going to be a 1. And I was wrong. Next one's going to be a 3. Wrong again. 2. Got it right. 0. 3. 2. That was 1. 3. 2. The way that code works is I'm going to wait until I hit the button. While the button's being pressed, count really, really fast, mod 3, and record which button you pushed. When I release, I know what button you pushed. I know the random number. If the two match, I was right, otherwise I was wrong. Display how many times I was right and wrong, repeat. Now, if I am just guessing, I should be right 1/4 of the time. If I'm psychic, it'll be much more than that. So this is actually a chi-squared test, one more time. The procedure is first to set up the experiment. That's kind of like this. I'm going to guess which number is going to come up. Collect some data. I ran it 51 times, was right 11 times, wrong 40. Am I psychic? Well, that's a chi-squared test. I've got two possible outcomes, correct and incorrect. I should be right 1/4 of the time. With that many guesses, I should be right 12.75. I was right 11. Incorrect 38. I was wrong 40. Calculate the chi-squared score. Difference squared divided by 11. Difference squared divided by 40. Add them all together. 0.32. Again, going back to StatTrak, I've got 1 degree of freedom, meaning 2 bins. Chi-squared score of 0.32, corresponding to a probability of 42%. With that, that means that I apparently am not psychic. I apparently was actually running the experiment. If it matched up too well, I'm kind of suspicious that I didn't actually run the experiment. I fudged the data. Basically, there's no conclusion, which sadly means, based upon this data, I'm not psychic. But anyway, that's a chi-squared test. And that's homework set number 6 for ECE 376.